Hi, I'm Brad with Caldwell's Roofing, and I wanted to discuss when you use spray foam in an attic and you want to consider about ventilation, um, even if it's just like for ventilating the roofing surface. Um, and so there's a lot of different opinions when it comes to foam uh, attics and stuff. And so first of all, I have to disclaim liability. Make sure this stuff is according to code. Make sure you read up I can't be responsible. I'm giving you my best advice on this, but you want to double check it for yourself first. So, um, what I have found after doing some study on this issue is, in general, it's always good to start with the codes because the codes kind of represent conventional wisdom. They represent a whole bunch of people across the country, across the world, like trying to figure stuff out, and they have to come up with something really good. So the codes is a good place to start. So right here, this is IRC 2015. I'm right here at section R 806.5, unvented attic and unvented enclosed rafter assemblies, and it's required to follow code anyways, but I think it's very smart advice that they've got in here. So first of all, they say the unvented attic space is completely within the building thermal envelope, and that just means, kind of like your heated and cold area. Your garage is not part of that, but your house is. And so when you're doing a foam attic, your attic becomes kind of part of your house, because it's going to be kind of part of the enclosed part of your house that you're protecting from the weather and whatnot. So that's all that means right there. And then number 2 says, basically it says, don't do it the way you normally do it. If you're going to be doing spray foam, then, you don't want to think about bad insulation that's got that, I think it has a vapor retarder on one side that you have to face it one way. The paper has to face one way or another. I believe that's what that's talking about. It's just saying, hey, don't be dumb. We're talking spray foam here. We're not talking about bad insulation, so don't do bad insulation. That's how I take that point right there. And then point 3 is kind of another kind of don't be dumb thing. It's just saying, hey, if you're using wood shingles or you're using wood shakes, which is not very common roofing material, but it does happen sometimes. Then it says, hey, make sure you have this 1/4 inch vented airspace between those wood shingles or the wood shakes and the roofing underlayment, which of course is on top of the structural sheathing. So it's just saying, hey, make sure you're still ventilating your wood shingles. And just to make a point on this, code is not really explicit on this, but I think a lot of manufacturers of asphalt shingles, like GAF, they pretty much always want you to have ventilation under your shingles. So even if you're doing a foam roof, you're taking care of humidity and all that junk, they still want to see ventilation under their shingles. So the way that you can do that is if you have a vented nail base, or you install 2x4 sleepers and then install your decking on top of that, something that above the structural sheathing, you have a little slot for air to pass through. And so of course you'll have to have a vented drip edge at the base to let the air get in, and you'll have to have a ridge vent at the top to let the air get out. But that's very good, and code doesn't explicitly state that, but it does say, let's see, if you're going to the start of the roofing section where it has the general comments, it says that you should always follow your manufacturer's instructions, and GAF says they at least recommend, if not outright required, that you have ventilation under your shingles. It's a little bit of a debated issue, but it's definitely the better idea to have ventilation. That's going to probably help with your AC bills and stuff. So anyways, okay, point number 4 says in climate zones 5, 6, 7, and 8, any air impermeable insulation, that's going to be probably the closed cell or the open cell, either, I think it's about 5 or 6 inches generally of open cell, or about 1 inch plus of closed cell. I think either of those is going to be categorized as air impermeable insulation. And so in climate zones 5, 6, 7, and 8, you say, well, what's that? Well, let's go take a look. Right here, we've got this website here, ICC Safe. I think that has something to do with the International Code Commission. Here they've got your zones. I happen to live right here at Auburn, Alabama, so I'm in zone 3. There's zone 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then once you get to, let's see, what do they say? 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8. So right there, 5, 6, 7, and I don't know, maybe Canada or something is 8. Those areas is where this particular comment applies. So in those zones, those northern zones, if you have an air impermeable insulation, which like I said, I think that's going to be open cell or closed cell if it's got sufficient depth, it shall be a class 2 vapor retarder. That means it's going to retard the vapor, or it shall have a class 2 vapor retarder coating or covering in direct contact with the underside of that spray foam insulation stuff. So I think the closed cell is a vapor retarder, but then if you have open cell, that's when you would have to coat it. That's my understanding of that. Again, in warmer climates, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, point number 5 says insulation shall be located in accordance with the following. Then it's got like these little subcategories. So it says where only air impermeable insulation is provided, again, I think that means open or closed cell of a sufficient depth, it shall be applied in direct contact with the underside of the structural roof sheathing. In other words, spray it on the underside of the roof sheathing. Where air permeable insulation is provided inside the building thermal envelope. So I think that would be spray cellulose or something like that. But, you know, you got to check it for yourself. It should be installed in accordance with section 5.1 in addition to the air permeable insulation installed directly below the structural sheathing. Rigid board or sheet insulation shall be installed directly above the structural roof sheathing in accordance with the R values in this table right here for condensation control. That's this table right here. And so basically my understanding of that is, you know, okay, you've got that spray cellulose, something that's air permeable. Okay, well, you've got humid air. Let's say it's wintertime. You've got humid air from your house coming up into the attic. Humid air, I hear, is lighter and less dense actually than dry air. That's hard to believe, but apparently that's the case. So that moisture goes upwards, and if that roof decking, that sheathing is cold in the wintertime, then the humidity from your house is going to want to like condense, and you're basically going to have like kind of soggy sheathing that's going to tend to rot and stuff. And so what they do is they say, hey, on top of your sheathing, you want to install some rigid board insulation, you know, for a particular zone. This is what you need. This is how much R value it needs to have. So, you know, maybe it's going to be 1/2-inch fanfold insulation. Maybe it's going to be, you know, 2-inch ISO. You got to figure that out for yourself. And basically what that does is that's going to kind of insulate that roof sheathing so that it's not as cold in the wintertime. And so that way, when that humid air comes up there, it doesn't have a surface to condense onto. Because when you have a cold surface, that's when you have humid air wanting to condense on something and cause it to get soggy and rot out and stuff like that. So that's the point of that right there. And then it says, okay, let's look at this one here. Where both air impermeable and air permeable insulation are provided, the air impermeable insulation shall be applied in direct contact with the underside of the structural roof sheathing and shall be in accordance with the R values in this for condensation control. Okay, I had to do a little study on 5.1.3 and 5.1.4, but now I think I've got it. Okay, so all of these little points here under 5 are having to do with condensation control, because when you don't have that ventilated attic, well, then all of a sudden you've got to think about making sure that your roof sheathing doesn't get soggy, and you have to think about your condensation and stuff. So this one right here is saying that if you're going to be using both the spray foam, air impermeable, which spray foam generally is, and the air permeable, which is cellulose or fiberglass, for example, and that's confirmed at least in this commentary, right down here somewhere. Yeah, right here. Fiberglass and cellulose are common types of air permeable insulation. That means air can get through a little bit. Air impermeable insulation is defined as having an air permeance of whatever that stuff is. I don't know that stuff. Expanding spray foams and insulated sheathing, hard foam sheathing board, are common types of air impermeable insulation. And I would say probably generally. There may be some exceptions to that. So this one here, when you're using both the spray foam and the cellulose, for example, the spray foam should be put onto the bottom of the decking first, and it should be in accordance with the R values of this table for condensation control. And then your cellulose or whatever would be installed directly under that. So your spray foam in that case would have to be a sufficient R value from this table here for your particular zone. So again, I said I live in zone 3. So for me, I would have to have R-5 for this particular application. And let's go back up here. It says here on this point, alternatively, and I don't think that means alternatively to that. I think it means like, here's another complete different option from all that stuff. Sufficient rigid board or sheet insulation shall be installed directly above the structural roof sheathing to maintain a monthly average temperature on the underside of the structural roof sheathing above 45 degrees Fahrenheit for calculation purposes. An interior air temperature of 68 degrees is assumed, and the exterior air temperature is assumed to be the monthly average outside air temperature of the 3 coldest months. So think about winter time. And basically you're saying, hey, we would just want to keep this sheathing warm, and the way we do it is by having rigid board insulation above the structural roof sheathing. So think like 2-inch isoboard or a couple layers of 2-inch isoboard or something else like that. And I think in this case it's not even envisioning anything on the inside of I don't think it's envisioning spray foam or cellulose or insulation bats or anything on the inside of the attic, on the underside of the roof decking. I think it's just solely relying on those, rigid board insulation panels that are exterior to your roof sheathing. So you might think about like on a commercial building, like a bank or something, maybe they would do something like that where, you see them like laying all these super thick layers of insulation board on top of the roof after the roof sheathing has been installed. So I think that's what that guy there is talking about. And I found a bunch of helpful commentary right here in the commentary. Of course, the commentary is not code, but it is very helpful to just kind of verifying that what you were thinking was correct if you had the proper understanding of the code or not. Let's see here. Yeah, so item 5 requires sufficient insulation to keep moisture from condensing on the condensing surface inside the attic in average conditions. And I thought it was interesting because it was saying the condensing, right here, the condensing surface is the interior side of the roof deck for an air permeable insulation like cellulose or batt insulation. And the condensing surface, let's see here. Okay, and the condensing surface is the interior of the insulation for air impermeable insulation. So it's saying if you got closed cell or open cell spray insulation, then the inside face of that is where the condensation would happen if you didn't have thick enough, R value and stuff. But because you're following it by code, they're saying, oh, well, you're not going to get that condensation happen there. Now, I will say that after reading all those other articles that I read, it seems that people are still getting like, I don't know if you want to call it condensation or if you want to call it solar drive, or if you want to call it nighttime radiation, or what the cause is, but somehow or another, with the open cell stuff, that people are still seeming to get some kind of rotten stuff on their decking sometimes. And I haven't seen it a whole lot. It's probably fairly rare, but you know, some people are seeing that. So if people are seeing that more often with the open cell than they are with the closed cell, then I would personally go with the closed cell just to make sure, because it seems like, you know, even with these good codes in place and stuff, it looks like they were still having some issues. It says also here that the insulation required by item 5, again, that's this part up here, that's this part up here. The insulation required by item 5 may be more or less than the insulation required for energy efficiency in chapter 11. And then it says, you know, the insulation that you provide for item 5 there can help you to contribute to what you need for what's in chapter 11 if it's greater. And I think chapter 11 is just going to be dealing with, you know, how much insulation value do you need at certain spots, like for the roof or for the walls and stuff like that. So just your general insulation guidelines. And then, you know, it's got some little disclaimers, and I thought it was interesting too, is mentioning, you know, remember they've got this little thing for a thermal barrier and protection from ignition. So you got to check that stuff too. Real quick, I just wanted to talk about thermal bridging. So when you've got like spray foam insulation, I think this is open cell here, basically this wood, you know, isn't going to have as good of an insulating value as the insulation itself. So every spot where you've got a rafter, you know, you can get a little bit of what they call thermal bridging. So that's what they're talking about. And so for our takeaway, if we come over here, we've got, here you actually see a case of, see all that soggy OSB right there. And what I found from these articles is that they're saying that the open cell tends to result more often in problems like this. And so the closed cell, they're arguing, is less likely to have the rotted decking because the humidity from your house possibly comes up there and condenses on that OSB or that sheathing. Now, they also said if you either have like a leaky AC system up there in the attic, that's actually good. Or so I've heard people say also that it's good to actually put a small duct serving your attic if you're going to be doing this foam attic stuff, because that helps to keep the OSB or the plywood drier. And I think I was reading in these things that basically it actually gets wet, it actually gets humid enough that it forces the decking to get physically wet, just like you're seeing in that picture. You know, if you've got like enough humidity coming from the house, and you know, maybe you've got a really good HVAC system up there where it's not leaky and it doesn't have any kind of ducts to provide cool air into the attic and to feed that humid attic air back into the supply and to more or less dry it out. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but to keep the plywood drier, you want to have the closed cell instead of the open cell, and you want to provide your attic with a air duct from the AC unit and actually like cool off your attic and shoot that moist attic air back into the air supply where as it goes through the coils of the HVAC system, it tends to dehumidify it and take the water out of that air. So that's basically, this is a very good article. It's talking about all kinds of different effects on, you know, why does OSB or plywood get wet sometimes with spray foam insulation. It also linked over to this other article here by Journal of Light Construction This guy was repairing a rotted roof and trying to figure out what caused it and so forth. Very good article there, very informative. Highly recommend it. You can see the link right there. Here's some more of it right there they're talking about. But lastly, I wanted to look at, pardon my cat here. Lastly, I wanted to look at this other article. I think it was over on this screen here. Yeah. Okay, this was a very bad article, in my opinion. Let's see, where does it start here? Open cell, spray foam, what every contractor should know. And so it's basically saying, you know, hey, open cell is really good, closed cell, meh, not so much. But I have the exact opposite opinion. I have installed both closed cell and open cell. I've built 2 houses. The first house I used closed cell in the entire attic area on the underside of the decking, and I had tremendous success with that. It was amazing. Like my AC bills, it was a huge house. It was like probably 3,850 square feet, 3,850 square feet. Sort of like story and a half. Like the second story was enclosed in a large gable, like a 12 on 12 or a 10 on 12 roof, and it was just amazing. Like AC bills of $200 a month for a house that size, that's insane to me. That's just so cheap. And then I built another house that is where I'm currently living at. This is it right here. And I have spray foam open cell like right in there and going all the way up, and also like over there behind the sheetrock. But I didn't do it over like the whole roof. I just did it over this bonus room, this upstairs bonus room that I'm in. And I don't know, I mean, it seems fairly good. My experience with open cell has not been so good. I've as a roofing contractor, I've been in several houses where they had open cell and they had a leak, and you could just reach up your hand and like squeeze the open cell, and it was just like pouring out a cup of water. I mean, it was awful. It was like water just absolutely gushed out of that stuff. And so like this little report here, let's start with, water absorption. So here it's saying, you know, you could do this test where you submerge open cell in a bucket, but that's not really a real life scenario. Yeah, it is. It's a very real life scenario. I've seen it so many times, and open cell takes in water all day long. I mean, it absolutely takes in water, and it'll just sit there, and it can rot out your decking and stuff. So yeah, it absolutely happens in real life. I've seen it with my own eyes so many times, and just like the water just gushes out, you know, when you squeeze it, just gushes out on the sheetrock, you know, on the floor of the attic or whatever. So, anyways, let's move on a little bit. Here they're talking about air permeance, and basically it's saying let's see here. I guess it's just trying to say that open cell does stop the air, which is, you know, okay, that's fine. Okay, truth number 3, structural strength. The closed cell does seem to have a little bit of structural strength, and that's actually a good thing in my opinion. So I think they knock it a little bit there, but I think it's a good thing. And they were talking about like you can get cracks in the closed cell, and maybe it will let in a little bit of heat or something. I just really like the closed cell product. It's just amazing in my opinion. I didn't notice any cracks where I was living, and like I said, it's done an amazing job. This house here, I've paid probably $400 or $500 a month on cooling the house in the summer. It's a much smaller house, you know, given I didn't do spray foam over the whole attic, but still it's like, you know, I've not been too pleased with the AC bills in the summer in this house, and I was just blown away by how awesome that closed cell was on my first house. Seems like everybody in town uses the open cell. I really very, very rarely see the closed cell, and it seems to do so well. And again, as I was saying in that other article, it was like the closed cell you get less humidity going to your roof sheathing, and the roof sheathing performs better, and stuff like that. So, and they were talking too about like the open cell. Oh well, you'll see where your leak is at. Well, no, you don't. I mean, I've been in so many houses inspecting for leaks on roofs. I'm not saying that I did the roof, but like just inspecting for people, and it is so hard to see where the leak comes from. I mean, you can squeeze and the insulation will be wet, but you can squeeze like 8 feet up from there and it'll be wet, and squeeze 8 feet from up there, and then maybe that's dry, and then 2 feet above that it's wet, and you really got to like troubleshoot the thing. So, and if you rip out stuff to try to see stuff, well, then you got to go back and spray it, and that's an added cost. With the closed cell, I don't know. I haven't had a whole lot of experience like troubleshooting leaks on closed cell because nobody uses it. But I guess you would have a problem with that too, to be fair. R value, they both can get a good R value. Moisture permeability. Open cell foam is described as being vapor permeable. By contrast, closed cell is said to be vapor impermeable. While some water vapor can move through open cell foam under the right conditions, if the material is classed as an air barrier, then it is effective in controlling the primary moisture transfer mechanism through the building envelope, which is convective. Moisture flow, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't really know what they're trying to say there. So anyways, I was reading through that thing and I was like, man, I don't really agree with much anything in that whole report. So I just thought I would mention that there. So, again, just go back to the codes here. Let's see here. Where's my codes at? Yeah, here's the codes. So, follow your codes. They've usually got it right. Just to reiterate too, when you're dealing with a shingle roof, it's always good to have ventilation. So even if you're doing a foam roof and you can't have ventilation in the attic space, you can still create a little pocket of ventilation above your roof sheathing by using a vented nail base, such as GAF's Thermocal 1 or 2. Other people make vented nail base as well. You could also just make your own by installing 2x4 sleepers and then installing some roof decking on top of that. And basically, GAF says that they want you to do ventilation. I've got the technical bulletin here if I can find it really quickly, just to show you, because nobody ever really thinks, well, what about protecting the roofing material? Because that's kind of a big deal. Okay, here we go. Under deck sprayed in place foam insulation. Okay, right here. Well, sprayed in place foam insulation void my warranty. That is, if you don't put some kind of vented nail base on top. No. The GAF shingle limited warranty against manufacturing defects will remain in place. I don't know if that's talking about the System Plus warranty or not, but notice here it says, however, any damage to the shingles attributable to using sprayed in place insulation directly applied to the roof deck or lack of ventilation is excluded from GAF's responsibility under the terms of our limited warranty. So there it's kind of like they're saying, hey, you can't really hold us accountable if you fail to provide a layer of ventilation, even in the case of this sprayed foam attic, where the attic itself is not going to be ventilated, but they still want to have that layer of vented nail base. And so there you see right there, GAF recommends Thermocal ventilated nail base along with Cobra, Soffit, I think they mean like the fascia flow or a vented drip edge product or something like that, and ridge vents. So you've got an intake there at the soffit or at the drip edge, and you have a through pass, which is the vented nail base, which goes along the hole underneath all the shingles, and then it exits out at the ridge. And so you've got that ability for the natural convection of air to happen. And basically what that does is it keeps the shingles cooler and keeps them from like developing heat blisters and stuff. And it's supposed to increase longevity of the shingles lifespan. It's also going to help, I think, with your AC bills because, if your shingles are cooler, then your insulation's effective R value is not decreased as badly, and basically you're saving money all the way around in the I don't know if I can say net or not, but it's definitely like you're increasing your insulation value or your effective insulation value when you do this stuff correctly. And but not only that, you're making GAF honor their commitments with their warranties and stuff, and so it's just the right way to do it. So I really never see anybody using the vented nail base and stuff when they have a foam roof, but I would recommend it, and I do think it's the better approach. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too long-winded, but this is kind of a technical matter, and if you want to get it right, you kind of have to put in the time to learn the tedious little details, and so I think that's about the best I can do for you and cover all the bases that I was wanting to cover. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you.